You know the winning formula. This video is part of our introductory series entitled You and the IRS Collection Machine. The introductory series features a number of phrases which we use in our practice to help folks understand the nature of their IRS problem at a more personal, deeper, and non-technical level. I've coined these phrases more than 25 years ago, and they've stood the test of time. They help you understand what's happening to you because you can relate to them through your regular life experiences, and they'll give you more confidence so that you can successfully take the first step in resolving your IRS problem. You know the formula. Do it yourself with Digital Tax Attorney. Get 2 digital tax attorney sets and talk to one of our tax attorneys for free. This is industry revolutionary. Let us help you help yourself. Then decide what's best for you. Remember, the more you know, the less you pay. Our topic today is, are you in IRS meltdown? Now, before I get into a definition, I want to talk about some examples or some things that show or demonstrate that you or somebody that you know is in IRS meltdown. For instance, do you have stacks of unopened mail from the IRS? Or have you failed to claim the certified mailings? Or are you throwing unopened mail from the IRS in the trash, just completely ignoring everything that's being sent to you? Do you have trouble sleeping, especially after you read letters from the IRS? Or are you losing your temper? Do you have anxiety attacks? Are you so financially strapped because you've already had levies issued against your wages or your bank account, and it's causing you more expense, and you're falling behind in every other financial regard? Are you petrified of answering the phone or the front door because you don't want to have any contact from anybody with the IRS? And now, worse yet, are you not keeping up with your current filing or your payment responsibilities because you have delinquencies in the past, where you may not have filed all your returns or you may not have paid all the taxes that are due? Are you that debilitated? Does it prevent you from keeping up with your basic living responsibilities? I mean, that's the key. And you have to ask yourself that. If you've already received a payment plan from the IRS and you can't make the payments that have been imposed on you, and you're robbing Peter, if you will, to pay Paul, you're going to eventually find out that the other creditor delinquencies are going to catch up to you. Now that's IRS meltdown too. These things that you cannot for some reason satisfy need to be addressed, and they need to be, if you will, packaged so that you can start living up to your responsibility and you don't add new problems on top of the old. Now, Digital Tax Attorney is here to help. And we understand that you may have already called other, quote, experts, and you may have already been told that they won't represent you or talk to you. Or maybe they told you that they would represent you, but the amount of money that they want is way outside of what you think is appropriate or possibly even can pay. That's IRS meltdown. Now, here's the definition of an IRS meltdown. An IRS meltdown is an IRS problem that has overwhelmed you either emotionally or intellectually or psychologically or possibly even physically. Yes, physically. You're in IRS meltdown when you're incapable of acting, when you're unsure what to do, or when you foolishly talk yourself into believing that there isn't anything that can be done for you. Now, for most people, just receiving an IRS letter may trigger an IRS meltdown. You know how it feels. Your blood pressure spikes, you get dizzy. Some people even get physically sick. At the very least, I can tell you that in my experience, I've seen all of those reactions and many more. But most importantly, I can tell you that if you're in meltdown, you have to address it. because I've seen that condition make people ill, and I personally believe that it actually shortens your life, and it certainly detracts from your ability to enjoy your life. Now, by comparison, if the IRS makes a demand on you that's easily within your ability to resolve, you just take care of it. And you may not want to part with the money, but its very existence and your paying it isn't going to upset you to the point that you can't address it or where you're emotionally debilitated or physically ill or where your other daily responsibilities are not being met. But an IRS demand that is beyond your ability to pay presents other challenges, which can ultimately ripen into an IRS meltdown. The same is true if you believe you're being treated unfairly, if you believe the IRS is wrong, or if the IRS's threat to levy or actual levy of your pay and bank account reduces you to a point where you feel like a quivering pile of protoplasm. Now, how much do you have to owe to be an IRS meltdown? Well, unfortunately, you can't just quote an exact number and answer that question. That's because every person is unique, and so are their lives and temperament. So, any one person may have meltdown where another person doesn't because they have more tolerance. But let's recognize this. I understand that some people are in meltdown when they have a letter from the IRS that demands that they pay $1,500, $1,200, $750. Well, heck, if it's wrong, and if those demands continue to escalate, I can see how some people may melt down for that. So the real question is, how much disruption does the IRS demand impose on you? And if the burden is great, after enough time passes, the likelihood is that the continuing IRS threats or collection actions will exceed your ability to timely and reasonably address the demands. The risk is compounded if you believe the IRS matter should be resolved in your favor, but that it lingers on and it tests your patience, or if you don't know how to present the information to the IRS to help it understand your true circumstances, or where the IRS representatives have not respected you, where they've insulted you, or where they ignore you in your efforts to communicate with them. Now, all of that frustration, coupled with the reality that the IRS will add more penalties and interest to its demands of you, can easily drive you into the damaging world of IRS meltdown. And during that time, you're going to live in stress day after day, and in some cases, year after year, until you finally take the steps that you need to take to resolve the problem. Now, everyone knows the IRS isn't going to forget you or your liability, and that its demands and threats will become more frequent and more aggravating and more threatening, and the amount will increase with time. So will the telephone calls, and you'll risk the feared personal visit from the IRS collection agent, or worse yet, the levy that your bank accounts or your paycheck will be taken. Now, what type of person is prone to an IRS meltdown? It doesn't matter what your walk of life is, what your education level is, what your line of work is, what your gender is, what you like to do or not do. I mean, at any given time, the IRS openly states that there's 6 million to 12 million of you with IRS problems. And so if you take that pool of folks, you're going to find people from every imaginable walk of life and background, from the highest wage earner all the way down to the minimum wage earner. That's just the reality, and I can tell you I've seen it for 33 years. So, the key at this point is to acknowledge if you are engaging in any activity that has slowed you from or prevented you from addressing your IRS problem right now in real time. And your goal is to recognize that with Digital Tax Attorney, you will discover how and what to do in order to resolve them. You have real rights. The federal law wants you to benefit from them. That's all you have to do is learn them, and Digital Tax Attorney will help you do that. This is critical. This is how you get out of that meltdown state of life. You can do it yourself. And let Digital Tax Attorney help you help yourself. Remember, the more you know, the less you pay. And you know the winning formula.